We're back with another episode of the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. Hang out with my buddy TJ. What's up, dude? What is up? The garage got good, man. Dude, thanks for being here today. We're hanging out in the garage, talking a little bit about some ministry things, some big topics today. But TJ, you kind of are kicking off for us. We got a few episodes coming up of some folks that have been in ministry for more than people that are measuring ministry in decades, not years. And so, yeah, man, tell me a little bit more. TJ, you're Tahlequah, Oklahoma, been youth for 20 years, man. Man, what's changed? What's changed about ministry in 20 years, TJ?
Everything has changed about ministry in 20 years, I would say. You know, when I started back in 2004, honestly, I should not have been a youth pastor at that time. I'd barely been saved for any amount of time, but
just ready and willing.
Just ready and willing.
You were
the
there.
door opened, and I took the opportunity and ran for it. I knew I was called to ministry. I was terrified of it. Don't get me wrong, but and I've never felt qualified. Listen, I've never felt qualified to do student ministry, to do what I'm doing. But God is good, and He provides and preserves. But everything has changed.
What's something like 20 years ago? That's like pre-social media, pre-iPhone, in everybody's hands. Like what was that even like 20 years ago? There's people now that are like 20, like getting into ministry. They got no clue.
When I started, I would say the golden age of student ministry was kind of coming to an end. I say like the early 90s to like maybe 05. And I'm not discrediting anything that student pastors did in that time frame, because they had a huge impact on me in my life. But you could put pizza out, you could do basic games and stuff, and there was potential to grow no matter what.
There was a real social era, right? Like that's been one of the big shifts, is that I think youth group ended in like 2005, 2007. Like when kids were like, where am I going to hang out at? Like the mall's closed. Where do we go? Which the mall? I mean, who's even at the mall?
Exactly. So that aspect of it changed, and then like the political climate obviously changed, and so things that I could say, like from the pulpit, where students might stand up and clap and say, "Yeah, that's not right," or "That's right." You really can't do that anymore. I'm not saying you can't. You don't preach the word and preach the truth. But you have to do it a little more.
Takes a little more nuance.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, because the number of voices, I think that's one of the things that we've talked about on the podcast before, the number of voices that are speaking into the lives of students, whether it's through the algorithm, the feed, the YouTube channels, like whatever. There's so many people that are speaking either rightly or wrongly with authority. I mean, the life of a teenager in 05 was like mom, dad, coach, teacher, parent, friends. And now we've got influencers that like kids have never met, and they're like, man, I just want to be so much like him. You don't even know who that is.
Absolutely. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. Social media, technology, all that has come in and plays such a huge part.
The connectivity. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more. So one of the things that we love on the podcast is always talking about the ways in which ministry is a part of something bigger. Like youth ministry at its worst is a bubble of like just like its own thing for its own end. One of the things that you brought to the table that we want to talk about a lot today is the way in which ministry works well, both inside of the ministry it's trying to do, but other ministries. And so help folks out a little bit. Like when we talk about alignment, like that's a big word in ministry, but like youth ministry alongside the rest of the pieces of the church, like, man, what's been your experience? What's been your wisdom of like, this is like what must be or needs to be?
I think we're talking about alignment. What I'm saying is simply, and everyone has said it for years, the student ministry, they want that to be a part of the church. They want it to be its own kingdom. And a lot of times that happens for many different reasons. We can, make up any different scenario that we want. But at the end of the day, I think it falls on both the youth pastor's shoulders and the lead pastor, and maybe different leads of different ministries. I think everyone has to work together in recognizing, yes, of course, this is the next generation. And I know how we say it. This is the now generation.
Yes, it's the next now.
But actually working together to make that happen. As far as where I'm at now at River Valley Church.
There you go. Shout out. It's on the hat.
Yeah. Shout out.
Respect.
All my people. That's one of our main focuses, is just simply making sure that Wednesday night is exciting and hyped up, but for me to make sure that students on a Wednesday night recognize we have church on Sunday, and it's equally as exciting and it's equally as important for them to show up and serve
Yes.
on a Sunday and do those things, whether it's in children's ministry or the parking lot team or whatever that looks like. We want them to be connected because we know they're going to graduate one day.
Yeah.
And Tahlequah is a college town, and a lot of them will choose to stay. And we want them to feel connected as they grow older.
Yeah.
So important. It's foundational. And we know that if they're serving, a lot of times they'll stay.
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
it's one of those things. And we want them to be discipled. That stuff is important, right? Obviously. But just to be on the same page and for them to feel like they have a place amongst the adults. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
I get it. Students to adults, obviously. But it's one of the things that I'm not used to. I'm not. And I think a lot of youth pastors would say they're not used to it. But we're working hard at River Valley to make that happen. And I'm seeing the difference. I'm seeing the change. In fact,
But see, is there some things that y'all are doing? I know that you've been in ministry for a while. There's been like a change of culture recently.
a big change of culture. Yeah.
Is there some things that y'all are doing, like specifically that like again, 20 years in, are there things you're doing differently that others are like, man, you should probably be considering what you're doing with this? Or
I think it's me. It's my heart. And
Okay.
so it's nothing structural. I would say it's me accepting this. There are kids that I see on Sundays that I don't see on Wednesdays.
yeah,
And I don't care. Like they're there, and I'm excited and I'm happy about that. I may ask where you at,
yeah,
and I want them to know that they have a place there and a home there, and that they're loved or whatever, because they are. But it's okay if they just want to come on a Sunday, and it's okay if a big group of them just want to come on a Sunday. Like,
Yeah.
we'll use that. God will run with that, and they'll still grow. They don't have to be, in my student ministry on a Wednesday night for
For it
their
to
faith
count.
to be effective.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And so it's really my heart in this situation that's had to change, and I'm all for it. I really am. And that may be novel for me and not for everyone else, but
I don't know, man. I feel like youth ministry, ironically, can be a little bit territorial, right,
Yes.
or whatever, because like the double edge is like it's such a defined age bracket, right? Like, well, everybody that's 6th through 12th or 7th through 12th, they're mine. They belong in my
Yes.
ministry.
Yeah.
Like how many? Let's be real. How many of us are like they have those families with students
Yes.
that like are in and out, but never come to like camp or mission trip, and you're like, well, they don't love Jesus, and it's like, well, I mean, they may at home they may be like singing worship songs.
Yeah.
Just because they didn't come to D now doesn't mean that they hate God. But what I heard you say is like literally like the youth pastor finding a place for them, like to serve, like that is a certain kind of like humble thinking to be like, man, I'm not just trying to lead these students into what I'm doing, but I might be one of the best conduits to get them connected into serving
Yes,
as a
absolutely.
youth into a young adult. And it's
Yes.
like, instead of just like, man, that's somebody else's problem, like because you have the relationship, like that's a big
Yeah.
deal, man. Yeah.
And you said it. It was hard at first because you said that's mine.
Yeah.
And really that's been my mentality for a long time, because I felt like I needed to protect him for a long time in the situation that I was in, the environment that I was in. And this is just different. And so even though it's different and I recognize that it is different and it's better and it's a better method, I still at times want to be like, no, this is mine.
Yeah.
And so it's just been a process.
We're doing like the big thing here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, of course, youth groups, and I would say more so in smaller cities, are territorial,
Yeah.
right? And that's enough, you would think, right there. But to have that in your own church, I think that happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I wish I...
Well, one probably feeds the other, right? If you're feeling
Absolutely.
territorial against other ministries, then you're not so far removed of just feeling it unto your own, like youth ministry. Yeah.
And it never was like anything insidious on my behalf. I didn't think I was the only one that could do this or that. It's just you invest in students. Like you put the time in. You're there. You walk through battles with them. And it's hard to take a step back and say, it's okay if someone else takes over that discipleship process within the church. And that's all right.
Yeah.
And so the Lord's been working on my heart in that area. But I think it has to start at the top, obviously. And our lead pastor, Andreas, shout out Andreas and Emery, they really put a huge emphasis on doing just that, making sure that this next generation is the now generation. And it's not about just numbers and retaining them, but it's about, they're going to be world changers,
Yeah.
kingdom changers, and all of that stuff that we say. So how do we make that happen? And I love their mentality. I love their heart.
Yeah.
And it's something that I could easily see and get behind, and I'm all for it. And it's paying off. It's working.
Do you feel like part of that comes to the relationship that a youth leader can have with their staff? Like, I ask a little bit as a leading question, just like, man, like how much of this has been informed for you in a season of like reconnecting with your senior pastor and other staff leaders? Like, what are some of the things that you and Andreas have like in that relationship? Share a little bit more. I do think that's a piece of it. I mean, some of the things we've talked about on the podcast, the two things that keep a youth minister in ministry the longest are the quality of connection they have with other youth leaders, and then the quality of relationship they have with their senior leader.
Oh, man.
So talk a little bit more about that, because again,
Yes.
I think it starts at the top, and an unaligned staff is probably going to be hard to have alignment in ministry.
Yes.
So yeah,
I think just having recognition from your lead pastor that you're in the room a lot of times is a big thing, and to be heard, appreciated, and all stuff obviously that you would expect a youth pastor to say, but to have it backed up by the lead pastor.
Yeah.
And when I first met Andreas, before we even really had a chance to sit down and connect, he kind of gave his just his method of his approach on student ministry and its accountability to the church, right, and how they connect. And I was like, wow, I've never heard that. He said, I feel like too long churches have treated youth pastors as something dispensable. They don't want to pay them a wage that they can survive on.
Yeah.
And he said that, and you said it earlier, so you see them bouncing around, just trying to find a place where they feel appreciated and can raise a family.
Yeah. I'll do youth ministry till I have kids because I can't afford to do it otherwise. And that's not a good spot to be in. Yeah.
And so and it's stuff I think you want to hear and that you have heard. And it's kind of a dream come true for a youth pastor to sit under someone like that sees it that way. And I think the guard is changing, where the pastor doesn't expect his staff, or at least his youth pastor, to live in poverty. And just being honest, right? And
well, that's one thing I will say. In a season where it seems like youth ministers are in short supply, what do they say? It's a buyer's market, right?
Yes,
or whatever.
exactly.
Like if you are doing a good job, your church will find ways to value it because of how hard it is to find someone doing a good job.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
So just Andreas.
That's not to make youth pastors real estate. That was not. That was.
He just makes me, and it sounds so cheesy, like he makes me feel seen and heard. But he truly does. And I think with where I was at, I'm by no means going to say that I was a whipped puppy or treated just incredibly unfairly or just incredibly poorly, but I kind of began to believe that I was expendable and that student ministry was probably expendable, and just, if there is a hierarchy that, student ministry was down here, right?
Sure.
And being with someone like Andreas and Marie and the rest of the team, they don't see it like that. And so what I've done lately, and I do this, is I'll back off and say, well, I'm just a youth pastor. I think a lot of us might do this. I'm just a youth pastor. I don't need to be a part of this decision. I don't need to be here. And they're like, no, we want you here. Like, you are a part of this. And if this is going to grow or do this or that, you need to be a part because your students need to be a part. And it's important. And I'm not used to that. I'm not going to lie. And I don't know if it's just any one person's fault. I think it's just the way that it's been done for years. But this type of leadership to me is new, and I love it. And I think I would like to see that across the board. It would be wonderful if everyone could appreciate that. But on the same hand, I do see youth pastors that I maybe don't want that. They do want their own kingdom. And I don't know if that's an old guard kind of thing. But it has to come. They have to come in together, obviously, and make it happen and work together, because the world is just getting crazier. We know that. And how do we continue to reach these students?
Well, tell me a little bit of that, because you're in a season now of kind of rethinking some things in this kind of new chapter of church life. Like, tell me a little bit more, almost at like a design level. Like, if you were like the committee or the leadership, like both serving in the role and thinking about the role, or the area or department of youth ministry, like how would you try to frame up better expectations? Because I think there are some churches that are kind of redrafting what does student ministry mean. Like there's been a lot of folks that have moved to like NextGen ministry, where it's like maybe there's a person overseeing like youth and young adults, or cradle to college kind of stuff or whatever. So like, man, after 20 years experience in a new season, like how are you redrawing the boundaries for like what is the most important stuff, or like the direction of things to go? Like how would you put it in a way to give it just a little bit, I think, of like what is the right expectations, both for like a youth pastor who's trying to figure it out, but then also for a church that's like trying to like hire, lead, serve, do like what are the things?
Obviously, I think they should be called. I mean, that's between them and the Lord. But I think a lot of times you just want to find a rock star and you want to hire that rock star.
Yeah. Just to hand it off like, oh, dude, he's so good.
Yeah.
Just let him do. Yikes. I can't. Can you imagine any other business? Like, can you imagine like going to a Chick-fil-A and be like, we found this 24-year-old. He loves chicken so much. And we just let him run the store. And we just let him. He did it.
He's doing it.
He ate more nuggets than anybody else in the last year. And But there's just no, like, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
But that's it. I think for a long time they put a character over, the calling. And I saw that for so long. And for me, it was easy to see because I would say I don't have a lot of gifts, talents, abilities that I can see clearly. It's just God is good, and I do my best to be faithful. And you would see these guys who would step into roles, whether in Tahlequah, and I don't want anyone to say who's he talking about, because I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but and just they step into a new role at student ministry, and they're rock stars, but they don't last because their character can't match that calling, right? They're not ready for that, and so you want to look at that, and then I think longevity. Is it someone, if you're bringing in, are they willing to come into that town and become a part of that town?
Yeah.
And whether it's small, big, whatever, and say I'm gonna plant roots here. We talked about that earlier. And stay here and invest in this, because
you even kind of gave a number to it, right? You want tell what's the TJ number for root? Because rootedness sounds like a great idea, until you have a real dry season. So.
Yes, I would say if you have a guy that is worth it, it takes upwards to 5 years to see the impact that they're going to want to see. Yeah. I know where I was at, the last place I was at.
Neither one of you will know if this is working out until 5 years from now.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know. It's hard
yeah.
because there are so many ups and downs. And depending on who was there before them, if they had a really strong youth pastor that they're stepping into their role, it's going to be harder for them. It's harder to take over something that's more successful than something that had failed.
Yeah.
And so it may take 3 years just to turn over those students that want that other guy back, and then another year for that person to say, okay, these feel like not my kids, but my kids, my leaders, and to implement any kind of, plan, however that, whatever it looks like. But it's one of those things where it's a complicated process. I would not want that responsibility, but if it was me, I would find a person who's relational, who, if you're calling their, what do you call them whenever they put them down, the people that you call and talk to,
the call list or references. Yeah.
What's their virtue like? Are they truly who they say they are? And a lot of times it's, are they married? Do they have kids? Stuff like that. And I'm learning that
just collecting bio data or whatever. Like you're not shopping a Facebook profile. I want to know what they're like when they.
Are they good with students? And that was something that someone said. Are they good with students? Do students connect with them? Do they connect with students?
Yeah.
I mean, at any age, whether it's 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, even upwards to 60. If someone's 60 and they're called to do that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I actually think that like the older they get, the more true that is, the better it is. Just as a blanket statement, because like when you're 24, like, are you good with students? Well, they're 17, so you basically are a student. If you're 40,
Hayden.
Shout out to Hayden. If you're 40 and still like in the right, respectful, virtuous way, feel connected to lead, pastor, teach, student, like that's. I don't know. That's almost even more admirable. Yeah. So,
like I said, make gray hair normal on youth pastors. Like, make it normal. Like, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, badge of honor, man. That's right. I know,
in the past, like I really worried about what's going to happen when I get gray hair.
Yeah.
Are they going to, want to get rid of me, replace me
Who
with
is this
someone
guy?
newer?
Yeah.
And now seeing where I'm
You didn't
at,
get any brush in? Did you ever do
Yeah.
do you have a little brush in
I
the?
do. You better believe. I think now, looking where I'm at, I can honestly say I believe my best years in ministry are ahead of me.
Okay.
I truly believe that. And look, when I was 35, I never would have said that. I would have thought when I hit 44, I'd be on the downside,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No, I'm like,
Looking for the next thing
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
no, I know more than I ever did. I still don't know everything, don't get me wrong.
Mm.
And I'm still just as hungry to see students come to know Jesus as their Lord and Savior, college students too, if not more so, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the strategies are different these days. Church isn't being done like it used to be done. And so
Yeah.
the door is a little bit open wider, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's a little wider. And I'm all for it. Let's run. Let's run as fast as we can.
Say a little more. 'Cause I know that the ways in which you lead the team, like what are like the right, I mean, what are the expectations, the schedule? Because the relational thing, I think, is always the thing that gets folks hampered because they don't know, either they give every ounce of who they are to it, or they manage it so much that it almost becomes inauthentic. So you shared a little bit about the importance of, I know that, and Hayden has been backed us up on this here, of just like showing up and being there for folks. But like, how do you manage that?
lead?
Yeah, how do you lead in that way? Like, again, you can't be all things, all places to all people. So when you're thinking week to week, working week to week, like what goes into that, like planning or estimation or management of like your time and energy and focus?
To our younger youth pastors out there, if you are not delegating to the appropriate people, to people who are more gifted than you, because you should have people out there that are more gifted than you are surrounding you in the areas that you're not gifted in, then you probably won't grow in the way that you want to. And let's be honest, we should be competitive about numbers because that's the kingdom.
Yeah.
That's kingdom work. You should want to grow. At least for me, I stay hungry like that. That's just how I'm built different. No. No, but that is how I'm built. I always want to grow. And so I delegate, I make sure, and it's not just, I'm selfishly looking for people that can do things I can't. The Lord provides in that manner. But leaders let their leaders lead.
Yeah.
Like you let your people lead. And if on a weekly basis I'm not doing that, then I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for those that are called to ministry.
Yeah.
They don't have to be called to student ministry, but if you're called to ministry, I'm going to find you.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're at. I will find
will
you.
find
I will hunt you down.
It's like a little cut from the Taken movie.
Yes.
Yeah. He has a special set of skills.
Special set of skills. And I'll challenge you.
Yeah.
I'll give you every opportunity to grow that I can give. And eventually they'll outgrow what I have to offer, probably quicker than I'd like. That's it. Like I look for the leaders and I let them lead because I can't do everything, obviously.
Yeah.
And for me, that's how I grow a team. I've never been through an organizational like leadership class. I don't really know what that looks like. As far as that degree.
It's a lot of hypotheticals.
A lot of hypotheticals, right? But I know for me, delegation is everything. And like I said, not selfishly. I'm not there to just use people. But those people that feel called, or those people that have a gifting that they want to be used for the church, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do on a weekly basis. And I told you this earlier. If I can have a Wednesday where I'm sitting there doing nothing, it sounds crazy, but just watching my people grow and do what they're called to do and me be excited about it, that's a great Wednesday.
Dude, well, that's a good baton handoff, right? Like if you're showing up and the baton at 6:20 p.m. gets handed into what's going on, then that means you did a lot of good work right before then, instead of sometimes the scramble that it can feel like. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the scramble with all the changes recently, it's still a little there. But I look at someone like Hayden. I want to give him as many opportunities, as many chances as possible to get up and preach.
Yeah.
Hayden's already very relational, if not more so than me, so he has that down. But I want to give him opportunity to grow in the areas that I can see he needs to grow in, right? And he's doing it. If Hayden could be preaching once a week here in a month or so, that'd be awesome.
Be great.
Yeah.
Okay, I do want to ask though. One of the things we talked about before the show, and some of it's coming out even in this conversation, is your ability to lead others. I think that we got here from earlier is a little bit related to how much you know yourself. I think that's one of the things. The more that we sit across the table from people, the more the question feels like those that have trouble giving the work away don't know either what the work is to give away or don't know themselves enough to trust others with it. It goes back a little bit of that territorial thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, well, I got to do it.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more, like, because you've been on a journey of like learning more about yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think for folks just to hear maybe or even connect with like
You talking about the ADHD?
that, I mean, all of it,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Like hands down.
Yeah.
Obviously, I knew going back to like grade school, something was different. Like I couldn't connect with people the way I wanted to. It was just a tougher road for me to finish school, all this stuff. But once it tells about 35, 36, 37, me and my wife knew that something didn't seem right. Like professionally, I did not match up with my colleagues on any level.
Yeah. This is like in the last 10 years and stuff. This is not like this is the last
10 years. And I think for people with ADHD, no matter what profession or field you're in, at some point you're going to get exposed professionally. Like you're going to reach your ceiling that as far as the habits that you've created and the way that you've chosen to live, you're going to hit that ceiling, and the expectations of your job are going to be too much, right? And I hit that. And so me and my wife sat down and we decided medication is the best.
Yeah.
And then learning about myself and how I operate and having, decided to do that has just been one of the most rewarding things to find out. First off, I'm not alone.
Yeah. Okay.
Next off, I'm not lazy.
Yeah.
I'm not weird. Maybe I am a little weird, but it's not an alone type of weird. Like it's there are a lot of people out there that struggle with ADHD, and I say struggle because it really is a struggle.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you're not normal because you don't operate the way that society demands people to operate, and that normality. And so, I think, like I said, my coworkers, my bosses, they have to have a lot of grace on me, and they really do. I hope you guys go back and watch this because. I recognize how much grace you all have on me. I'm not, and you probably know this, I'm not great with getting back with people on text, calling.
No, that's okay. I get a text from TJ, and then I wait, and then I get a flurry of text, and then I wait. Yeah.
Yep. And it's nothing personal. Like it's just one of those things where I get sidetracked so easily. Yeah. And I also feel like if I can't give you the right answer, I don't want to give you the right answer until I can.
Okay.
And then a lot of times I don't ever get the right answer. And by the time I realize I didn't answer you, it's a week later, and I'm like, okay, that's not all right. But I'm learning, and that doesn't mean, like I said,
are there some things you have in place that way? Like, are there some like reminders or like things even with like your like office staff or volunteer team? Yes. Like, what are some like checks and balances on that or
in
whatever?
Our office? I think they've implemented. I don't think they think I know, but they've implemented block scheduling. Which it's vital for me. I've talked to my wife. My wife is a speech language pathologist, and she knows about all this stuff. And she's tried to help me for years. And she gets frustrated because I don't always listen to her. Yeah. As soon as I should. I love you, Katie. You're the best ever.
You're the best.
But they've implemented block scheduling, and it allows me to recognize when I need to be in for the team, and when I can go out and hang out with students and
do the thing you need to do.
Yes, have fun. Right?
Is that like posted somewhere? Is that like
no? We just
in everybody's
sat down and
calendar,
talked about
or
it.
you map it out together? Okay.
And I think too, like I said, their recognition. What do they do? They just have a lot of grace. Okay. That's what they have recognition of who I am, that I don't mean anything by the stuff that I do half the time. Yeah. And I think when you have ADHD, the best way to put it is you live in a world of gray. Okay. A lot of people are black, or a lot of people are white. Yeah. And they can find the boundaries that they need to stay in. In ADHD, it's like, I don't know where I'm at. I'm just gonna make it through today. I live off urgency. Okay. And I'm okay with that. But if you give me a plan, that urgency turns into like nightmare fuel. It's like, I have to do what? And especially when you didn't grow up that way, you didn't grow up recognizing this is what it was. It's just a lot. But having learned a lot about myself, what I'm not great at regarding ministry.
Yeah. So how are you delegating? Like, what are you delegating for more of or differently? Like, you shared a few minutes ago about like looking for the things and for the people that feel called to ministry, but even more specifically in the company of like youth ministry leaders, like what are some of the specific like functions or things you're like, man, here are the people I need in my life. Yeah.
So Hayden could probably answer this one for me. Anyone at River Valley can probably answer this for me. Like the woman I married, Caitlin, hands down administratively is just gifted.
Okay.
Like she can make a flow chart
Yeah.
quicker than anyone. Anything like that. And it's uncanny that I wasn't just attracted to her beauty. Like I recognize that she's a strong woman who like cares about me and understands who I am and is willing to come and help me in these situations. And I call them situations because I would find myself in situations where I just wasn't measuring up at work. She's always been there. And I look at someone like, I'm going to give a shout out to Leah. She's been with me and Katie for 8 years now in student ministry. She's walked through battles with us, through trials and tribulations, and she understands me as well as anyone, and she's game for it. She knows that she's probably not going to get a text message back whenever she wants it, or she understands that she's going to have to remind me multiple times on stuff. And as you're watching this, I promise you I'm not that toxic. I promise you I'm not, all right? Not everyone with ADHD.
But you're aware. Like
I'm very much aware of my insufficiencies and the things I'm not great at. And so when it comes to delegation, I'm going to delegate anything that involves administrative work, mapping out, planning.
The dates, the dates, the timeline, the communication plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so Nathan, shout out to Nathan. He was our last intern, really good at that stuff. And this is where me and Hayden are going to try to find out how to work this out, because he's very relational. He's administratively, he's along the lines of me and how I operate. And so we're going to figure this out. It could be a train wreck for a while, but we're going to have fun doing it. Right? We're going to have fun doing it. But that's who I like to surround myself with. I'm going to look for those people because for me, it's calming.
Yeah.
Like those types of people are calming for me.
Yeah.
My life, a lot of times, the best way to put it is chaos. Yeah. I can be all over the place, excited about one thing and then excited about another thing.
Yeah.
Hyperfixating on this. And in the meantime, I should have messaged 18 people back. But I'm having fun over here hanging out with the students, So there's two worlds that have to collide and work very well together. And I've learned I can't just neglect this over here. How do I strategize to fix that? Let's surround myself with people who are gifted in those areas.
Well, and then not trying to mask it too. I think that's sometimes people are like, well, I'm insufficient there because that's not important, right? Or whatever. We've teased before in the podcast that like there are some folks that are like so serious in ministry because fun is dumb or whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't know if that's actually true. I think that's maybe not your favorite thing is to plan the fun or whatever. But I think one of the things I know from just talking with you is like the willingness to know yourself enough to not just ask for help because I want more helpers, but to make the ministry more thorough.
Yes, make it better.
Yeah, to make it better is like something that really, really matters. And like,
absolutely.
And until you're willing enough to be honest enough to like understand, evaluate, almost investigate yourself, right? Like, am I having these problems because the problem, or is the problem me?
Yes.
Even at 36, like you're saying, like 10 years ago, like you're asking these questions. Like this isn't like, well, at 25, I have it figured out kind of stuff. Like, but even as a leader, like in your 40s, of asking, like, what are the things of me that might get in the way of the bigger work that we were trying to do? Like, that's real, man. That's real. And so
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head is learning to ask for help.
Yeah. But knowing yourself well enough to know what to ask for.
Absolutely.
Because I think I've seen so many youth leaders be like, I wish I had more helpers. And you're like, cool. What would they do?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I don't know. I just need more help.
Yes.
Well, man, if you don't know what they're going to do, nobody wants to sign up for a blank check of like, hey, come help me.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I can pay it.
Right. And I'm not always great at that either. I'm sure there are some our youth leaders or sponsors that show up every week and like, what am I doing?
Yeah, what do I need this week? Yeah.
And the answer to that is you're connecting with students. That's your job, right?
Yeah.
But with this whole transition to River Valley Church, with the planning it, it's something that I had to learn to do at a higher level than I ever had to do before, is ask for help.
Yeah.
And not just in recognition of what I'm insufficient at, but just recognizing what's best for the ministry. And so we want to feed the students every Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. I've never done that. I've never tried to do that. I know that's normal for a lot of churches, but for us, we've never done that. We're a new church. And so
How to make that happen, how to make it work. Yeah.
So I asked Michelle Naylor, her and her husband Mike. They own a local business in Tahlequah that make food, amazing food. Vidalia's, shout out Vidalia's hot dog place.
Yeah.
Wonderful food, great food. And I asked them for help.
Yeah.
And they were willing. And so every week they take it upon themselves to kind of organize the parents to make sure what's being brought, how much of it. Like, I don't have to do anything about it or worry about it at all. I never had that. But here's the thing, I never asked for it. You know, I never looked for that. I wanted it. I thought it was something that might be possible. And so asking for help and just, going for it, sometimes it's there.
Yeah.
And you just don't know it.
Being willing to be surprised. No, it's interesting that sometimes the enemy of the help that we need is the stuff we already have, right? Like, I know for y'all in this new season, like some of the help you need is stuff that you probably didn't even know you could ask for.
Exactly.
Because you already had a plan. There was already something in the works, right?
Yes.
There was already something going like, well, we don't need that. We already have this, right? It's the, we didn't think about asking these folks if we could use their land for this event because we had like a little bit of green space at the church. But man, if you've been to their place, it blow you away.
Yes.
or whatever. Yeah. Man. So I have one area of conversation to have, and this goes back because this feels like one of the I don't know. This shouldn't feel like a classic debate in youth ministry, but it feels like a classic tension. And I have a suspicion it's about to become tense again because of a renewed interest in being more outreach driven, invite culture stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I do not frame it this way, but it often gets framed this way of discipleship versus evangelism as if they don't interact with each other.
They have to work together. It's synergy. They're together. There's no separating.
But at the same time, like I know that informs and shapes a lot of people's like plans for ministry stuff. So like one, why does that get with 20 years of wisdom, why do those things get like put in competition or in tension? And two, how do we like rightfully practice both without like becoming more one than the other or whatever? Like why is that a mess, TJ? Why has that become a mess?
Well, for me, I only have recognition of it because I grew up in the Assemblies of God. And when I say this, I'm just being real, all right? And when the time in the era that I grew up in, the Assemblies of God did not seem to be the strongest in discipleship. But evangelism, they were great at.
Okay.
It felt like, right?
Okay.
And then once I became youth pastor at a local church in Tahlequah, we relied heavily on Baptist camps and stuff. And so I'd never been a part of that, never experienced it. They leaned heavily on discipleship in a way that I was not prepared for.
Yeah.
And it really made me think, have I even been doing my job the last few years? How are my kids saved? Like to the point where I relied so heavily on evangelism and just hype. And so that's on me. I can say, that's how I grew up. But so I think that's why I have recognition of the two worlds that can clash. And for me, it's been hard having, grown up in an environment that was evangelism driven.
Yeah.
To put the weight and emphasis and value on discipleship that should be there.
Yeah.
And to recognize that that shouldn't outweigh the other because, if they're not working together, the ministry won't grow either way in the way that you want it.
Yeah.
You either have a very shallow ministry or have a very small ministry. Both can be effective in their own ways. Praise God, because God works through these things and he'll be glorified no matter what. But how do you make them work together? Again, I would say it's delegation.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'll ever be strong with discipleship methods. And when I say this is crazy for a youth pastor to say this, all right? And it's no indication as far as how we lean or do our services or anything, but I've never been a fan of small groups.
Okay.
And maybe because of my ADHD.
Of being in one or having them. Because I'm here for that. Chad gives me a hard time. I'll plan a small group and then I'll find a way to exit quickly.
Yes, that's it, And I don't know if it's I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I can dive into that, but, and I know that small groups are evangelistic in their own right, but if done right, discipleship wise, people grow. You grow together. I get that, but they're effective and impactful. And so I know that with me not being a huge fan, I better find people that are. Not just to do them, but to organize them to be on fire for them. Hayden has, I don't know how many small groups Hayden leads. How many do you lead? 2, 3? Like legitimately small groups? 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's big for him.
Yeah.
It might just be big for his generation, like that's how they've been raised and brought up in church. And guess what? Praise God.
Yeah.
That's his heart. We're going to lean on that heavily. And he's beginning to have a huge impact on the young men around him. And that's what you're looking for. So I think it's just recognition of where you may lean and which way, because you're going to lean one way or another. I don't know if I've met anyone that is really good at both. Christian, I think at Jinx, seems to do a really good job with both. But I don't know, he has people around him. Maybe there's a good way to balance that out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this way. What I'm saying is 110% truth. It's just how I see it.
Yeah.
And so it's who you surround yourself with and who you delegate to.
But even maybe some of the function of ministry. And I guess I go back to, like, sometimes we use delegation as like supplemental bodies for the thing that we were already doing, where it becomes like more like when the band has more members, or what the choir has more voices. But one of the things I hear you saying, and like, and maybe this even for you to like, illuminate a little bit more, like even some of the actual like task and function of ministry, like Hayden and others that are actually leading ministry groups, as opposed to just like being extra chaperones in the room and stuff. But like the actual function of ministry is delegated based on like what we're trying to do in our own capacity, versus like, it's better safety protocol if we have 4 extra leaders or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, like I said, if you're gonna have leaders and let them lead, let them lead.
Let them lead.
I came to a point, I don't know how many years ago, where I decided I don't need any pats on the back. I get enough of that. Being in a small town, going up there, people want to come up, and if they see a picture that's taken on a Wednesday night and there's a lot of students in there, they're going to good job.
Yeah.
And I can never take the credit for it. And I know that we want to be humble. I really can't, because there's so many different like working hands in there. If people doing what they do, it doesn't feel right. It really doesn't, because you have Hayden putting the work in different ways in different areas. And I have different students, high school students who are doing the same thing. I'm going to let them lead, and I want them to get the recognition. I don't need that at all, period. And so, that's what it comes down to. If you're going to delegate, don't just delegate what you don't want to delegate, what you don't want to do, and then let your leaders shine a little bit.
Yeah.
Give them the shine. They deserve that. And if you don't get any, that's all right.
Yeah.
So be it. Like, seriously.
That may not have been your work. The work may not have been working for the compliments. It may have been working to put the other ones in place. Yeah.
And we know who gets all the glory. We
That's
understand
right. That's
that.
right.
But you know what I'm saying.
That's actually just a good pastoral exercise, to give other people glory. That's actually that's good for your soul.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, well, TJ, dude, thanks for hanging out with us today. What again, 20 years in, we've got a couple other folks that are coming on in the next few weeks. What is something wise that if you could look back and give to somebody who is in their first 2 to 5 years of ministry, what from your 20 years of experience would you be like, man, there's a lot of things that people will say and heard, but this is like stuck with you, either that you've heard or learned or held the most? Like, what is something that like you would want them to have and hold on to?
Number one, don't give up. Don't give up, no matter the situation.
No quitters.
No quitters. God will provide. He will. He'll preserve.
Yeah.
He'll take care of you. Number two, find a family, a team of youth pastors to surround yourself with. You can't do this alone. I'm telling you. I spent too much time trying to do it by myself without some supportive friends around me. And once I found those key people, and I'm not just talking about mentors. I'm talking about just camaraderie. Spending time with them. They're going through the same things.
Yes.
They will have the wisdom.
That community of calling.
Yes,
like the others that share that community of calling.
Find it, fight for it, and make time for it.
Yeah.
And then find mentors. At the same time, find if at least one person you can go sit down with that has
who's
done
ahead
it,
of you.
Ahead of you, that's done it longer, better, whatever that looks like for you. Be humble, be teachable, and this is big. Read your word, spend time in prayer.
Yeah.
That will sustain you longer than anything, obviously. But I think
even more kids at camp this year than last year, that won't sustain you.
Maybe, yeah, you're right. And it sounds so cheesy, like it really does. Like
Yeah.
read your Bible and pray, but
Yeah.
a lot of us get caught up in just being busy and just the commonality of what we're doing. And it's easy to take our eyes off of what's really important and to think that we can do this on our own. And I've gotten caught up in that myself, just being honest. And it's a fast fall. Like it really is. You've got to have him every single day. So stay teachable, stay humble, find a community of like-minded people, believers, youth pastors, find a mentor, stay strong, don't give up. I've got too much stuff here, don't I?
No, man, that's perfect, man. That's perfect.
Grow a beard.
Grow a beard. Grow a
There you
beard.
go.
So where to put them gray hairs?
There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me,
Dude,
Zach.
absolutely,
This
man.
is amazing.
Dude, so good. Well, dude, hey, thank you for your 20 years of stuff. Let's go grab some food.
Let's do it.
Snap.
I give you something to work with?